The winter of 1941 on the Eastern Front was not just a season, it was a weapon, an invisible adversary that crept into every trench and foxhole. German soldiers, expecting a quick victory, were trapped deep in Russia, facing a merciless cold they couldn't fight with bullets or tanks. Their confidence quickly faded as the reality of the Russian winter set in. Temperatures plunged to -40 and below, freezing skin in seconds and turning metal brittle. Even the simplest tasks became dangerous as frostbite struck without warning. Engines failed, weapons jammed, and summer uniforms offered no protection. The machinery of war was rendered useless by the relentless cold. The real battle became survival against the cold, not the Red Army. Soldiers improvised shelters and huddled together for warmth, desperately trying to keep the life-threatening chill at bay. Frostbite and hypothermia claimed thousands, with men freezing in foxholes and on the march. For many, the cold was a silent killer, striking in the darkness of night. The psychological toll was immense. Sleep was denied, morale shattered, and hope faded in the endless white. Exhaustion and despair became constant companions. The landscape became a symbol of despair, littered with frozen bodies. Each day the snow covered more evidence of suffering and loss. The dream of swift conquest dissolved into a nightmare of ice and snow. Hopes of victory were buried beneath drifts of white, replaced by a desperate struggle to endure. The German army, once invincible, now fought simply to survive each night. Every hour was a test of endurance, every breath a battle against the cold. The true enemy was no longer just the Soviets, it was the very air they breathed. The cold seeped into bones, sapping strength and willpower alike. Winter had become the deadliest force on the battlefield, claiming more lives than any weapon. Every sunrise was a victory over the cold. Each new day brought a fragile hope that survival was still possible. The Eastern Front was now a frozen hell, reshaping the war itself and leaving scars that would last for generations. On the Eastern Front, warmth became the only priority. Soldiers scavenged for anything that could burn: wood, fences, even parts of their own vehicles. Without fire, a night in the open meant near certain death. Shelters were dug into snow and earth, crude burrows offering a buffer against the wind. Any abandoned building became a fiercely contested prize, not for strategy, but for survival. Huddling together for body heat, men fought a daily battle for fuel and shelter. The search for warmth consumed every waking moment. Hunger, exhaustion, and the sight of frozen comrades deepened the despair. Survival depended on creativity and the will to endure one more night. In this war, heat was life, and every spark was hope. The frozen Russian earth was as hard as concrete, a relentless barrier that seemed to defy every effort to break through. Making shelter and fire pits was nearly impossible, as shovels bounced off the ground and pickaxes barely scratched the surface. Soldiers resorted to using precious explosives, grenades, dynamite, just to blast shallow craters, risking not only their limited resources but also drawing the attention of the enemy with every explosion. When the explosives ran out, they built roaring bonfires directly on the snow, hoping the heat would slowly thaw the stubborn soil beneath. Sometimes they heated rocks in the flames and placed them on the ground, repeating the process over and over to soften the earth layer by painstaking layer. Once a pit was finally dug, it became the heart of survival, a hidden sanctuary from the brutal cold. The fire, protected from the biting wind, radiated precious warmth through the earth, creating a rare pocket of comfort in a world of ice. Sleeping ledges were carved around the pit, allowing exhausted men to rest as close to the life-giving heat as possible. Every pit was a feat of desperate engineering, built with numb hands and sheer determination. These shelters were more than just holes in the ground. They were lifelines, offering hope and a chance at survival. Each one stood as a testament to human ingenuity and the will to endure, even under relentless fire. In the endless frozen wasteland, A well-dug fire pit could mean the difference between life and death for an entire unit. In the end, survival was measured in inches of thawed ground and in the warmth that kept hope alive through the bitterest nights. Fires brought warmth, but also danger. Smoke and light could reveal positions to the enemy. The Dakota fire pit changed everything. 2 holes connected by a tunnel created a hot, nearly smokeless fire. The design kept flames below ground, hiding their glow and minimizing smoke. Air drawn through the intake vent made the fire burn hotter and cleaner. Soldiers camouflaged the openings with snow or branches, making them nearly invisible. The Dakota fire pit balanced survival and stealth, letting men stay warm without becoming targets. It was a simple, brilliant adaptation to the deadliest conditions. In war, ingenuity was as vital as any weapon. Warmth inside a dugout brought new dangers. Smoke and deadly gases could suffocate men as they slept. The very fires that kept soldiers alive could quickly turn deadly if not managed with care, filling the cramped space with invisible threats. Insulation was vital, using pine boughs, straw, blankets, and even snow to trap heat. Every scrap of material was pressed into service, layered and packed to keep the bitter cold at bay. But a sealed shelter was a death trap. Fires consumed oxygen and released carbon monoxide. Without fresh air, the warmth could become a silent killer, creeping in as men slept. Soldiers engineered vents and chimneys, often from scavenged cans, to let smoke escape while keeping heat in. These makeshift solutions were born of necessity and ingenuity, crafted under the harshest conditions. Managing ventilation was a constant, delicate task. Too much, and warmth vanished. Too little, and air became lethal. Every adjustment was a calculated risk, a matter of life and death. Fireguards watched both the flames and the airflow, always alert for signs of danger. Their vigilance was the first and last line of defense against disaster in the night. The balance between insulation and ventilation was a nightly gamble. Each evening brought new decisions, and the wrong choice could have fatal consequences. Survival depended on mastering this invisible science. Understanding airflow and heat was as crucial as any weapon or ration. In the frozen dark, every breath was precious. The cold bit at exposed skin, and the air itself became a measure of hope and endurance. The art of staying alive was as much about airflow as fire, an unending struggle to balance warmth, safety, and the breath of life itself. Every spark risked discovery. Smoke by day, a flicker of light by night, either could bring enemy fire. Soldiers became masters of concealment, lighting fires only in fog or heavy snow, using the smallest flames and driest wood. Shelters were hidden in woods or behind hills, entrances covered to trap light. Even a match for a cigarette was forbidden after dark. The rhythm of life was dictated by the need to hide warmth. Fires were largest at midday, smallest at dawn and dusk. Every decision, when and how to light a fire, was a matter of life and death. The fear of being seen haunted every moment. Survival on the Eastern Front was a triumph of human spirit over impossible odds. Soldiers fought not just the enemy, but the cold, hunger, and despair. Ingenuity, like the Dakota fire pit and makeshift shelters, became their greatest weapon. Small victories, like finding fuel or digging deeper, kept hope alive. Camaraderie and shared suffering forged unbreakable bonds. These stories reveal the power of adaptation and the will to live. Even in the darkest winter, the human mind found ways to endure. In the end, the frozen hell of 1941 to 42 was a crucible that proved the resilience of the human spirit.